Hello and welcome to the Amateur Hour Podcast, a podcast from Amateur Mastermind Productions. Every other week, 4 young creatives get together to talk about whatever it is young creatives talk about.
Better this week.
I'm one of your hosts, Mike Messina. To my immediate right, the vision of the group, Darren Tunn.
Hello.
Across the table from me, the Quicksilver of the group, Richard Chow.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And finally, in between the two, we have the Scarlet Witch of the group, Jojo Chang.
Hello.
Is anyone watching WandaVision? I saw like 2 episodes.
I've been wanting to.
I enjoyed it
too.
I have not yet.
It was all right.
Want to as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll see
on
what
the
happens.
list.
Wait, the whole season finished already?
No, it's like 3 episodes left, something like that.
Oh, really?
That's crazy.
Okay.
Actually.
I thought it ended there. No.
Okay.
Every week I thought it was a movie. I'm like, oh, that's a weird movie. That's a weird way to end it, but all right.
Yeah.
Then another one comes out the next week. Yeah. So we're on the floor this week.
Yep. Trying to be more
we
comfortable.
downgraded a little
Be more grounded. We want to be more grounded.
Nah, we're on the 4th floor. There's no groundedness.
Okay.
That's true. I'm taking a yoga class right now, and it's all about spine support
Oh.
and stuff like that. I don't know how much I buy it though, because we talk about, there's science of breathing and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, science. I like science. I'm into that. And then she goes, and it's all about your life force energy. I'm like, what's the metric for that? What's the
Mike's
unit?
like, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Life
Can't
force
quantify
energy.
that.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
Can't really, That's weird. Never mind.
Never mind. I
Never
gotta
mind.
drop out.
Life force energy.
I gotta switch out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you do yoga?
You know what? I've done some yoga poses before.
Okay.
Yeah, like the
I've done some poses,
like the pyramid.
the surfer pose.
I've done the what is it called?
I do 1 or 2 poses.
Yeah,
Which ones are those?
I play the yoga trainer from
on Wii Fit.
On Wii
Yeah.
Yeah.
You play
That's like the same
Smash.
thing.
and you sit
Yeah,
in the
Smash.
trainer.
Yeah, Wii trainer.
It's great.
Wii Fit trainer.
Yeah. She's going into like warrior pose and
Yeah.
smacking someone in the chest.
Yeah.
Best thing ever.
Nice.
So this week, I think we wanted to talk about some issues, not like fake movie issues, some
Yes,
real
yes.
life issues.
For sure.
Well, I think the news has really shown us a lot. I think this whole month, actually, from the beginning, there's been a lot of atrocities that we've seen. And I think it hits home because we're all Asian. So I think seeing a lot of these Asian hate crimes happen on the news and the media has just been really disheartening, especially because it's just so violent. And I mean, I can't even like wrap my head around like what to say, what to feel, because I already feel so disgusted by it. It's not even my direct family members. And to think that there's people that had to like live with that, like those scars or those deaths, and it's just insane. So I think I think in the beginning too, there was a lack of media coverage for these issues. And I saw a lot of like social media posts that really promoted that.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely like blew it out of like just, the center of people that tend to care about it and really expanded towards a more, I guess, nationwide.
It's kind of crazy because if you're not following a lot of these, I guess, Instagram pages or social media pages, you really wouldn't know about it, Yeah. And like, especially my grandparents, they only watch the news. And being that the news is not reporting these things, it's like they don't even know that Asians are getting attacked, nothing about it. So
Maybe we should set the table a little bit, like officially say that we're referring to a rise in attacks and assaults and robberies on Asian Americans, elderly especially, since COVID has hit. Yeah, a lot in New York, a lot on the West Coast as well, in Oakland especially. I hear about a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And it's an issue. And like you said, exposure is a huge problem. It's getting a little bit better. I know one thing that I think it was Daniel Day Kim and David Wu, who are 2 actors, did. And we were in
as well.
Yeah, definitely. She's been helping out. I know those 2 Daniels, they put a couple $1,000s together for
it was like $25K or something like that. Yeah. And they had like a Clubhouse talk
they did.
twice already. Yeah.
Sure
It was pretty good. Those went on for pretty long.
Yeah.
I had to leave, but then I saw it again at like 10 p.m. or 12. I was like, what? They're still talking. What the hell?
Oh, really? Is
The one you were in. Yeah.
Oh my God. I left at like 8 something.
Yeah.
It started at 7 and I left at like 8:30.
It was long.
It lasted for that long?
Yeah.
That's
I went back on at like
crazy.
12 and it was still on. I was like,
Oh my
wow.
gosh. For some context, Clubhouse is this new like social media app. It's audio based only and it's invite only. So slightly elitist. I mean, not slightly. Definitely elitist, but I think it does have
So you
some
can get in with their
valuable
network.
content.
Yeah.
Because you get it's a lot of like audio learning. So I think it's like audiobook, but more like interactive because you can technically ask questions.
It's like an interactive podcast.
Yeah. No, but I think that one's super awesome because on that specific podcast, I called it a podcast. That specific talk, they had like congresswomen and men that were like of Asian.
Shout out to Judy Chu.
Yes, Asian American backgrounds. I was like, oh, that's awesome because
she's cool.
Like they have not usually held those spots. So I think that was really awesome. I think.
Yeah, I really like it because I think Daniel Day Kim was the guy he picked out most of the speakers, right? Or something like that, right?
He had a New Jersey senator on.
Yeah, he had like
Kim, I think.
He had like a whole lot of different voices that don't necessarily like agree with each other on the same issue. So we had like a lot of different like perspectives on like how to deal with it.
Yeah, I think it's super important because I feel like if you constantly just hear the same media, hear the same things over again, you're not expanding your network and your scope of like what you consume, and you're almost narrow-minded because you're not like expanding upon that.
It's an echo chamber, basically what it is. And for the longest time, I think Facebook, for example, got in a lot of heat, right? Like not just for, I guess, like privacy concerns, but for me, at least personally, specifically, it's like whatever media you consume, they just they feed you more and more of that same media. But it's like, what if you want to escape out of that bubble? And Google does the same thing. It's just because the algorithm doesn't know who you are. So all it does is like, oh, they like this, so therefore I'm just going to show more of this to them.
Yeah, and the great thing about that Clubhouse room, like you're saying, is that people who have the same goal but who have different, strategies and thoughts about how to get there are coming together directly. And so even if your newsfeed is all pro-Asian, focusing on these Asian attacks, all those kinds of accounts and points of view, you're not seeing them interact with each other. So you might not realize that there are disagreements when two people are approaching it from different ways, but seeing them come together and clash a little bit, that was really, really important because I was there too. I was there for both of them. I'm actually trying to write, because like you said, a little elitist is also because, it's invite only, it's only on iOS. I think that is supposed to filter out some of the, the trolls or like the Zoom bombers that we've had in different Zoom classes for universities. It's supposed to make it a bit of a more guaranteed, a quality space where you're not going to have too many people destroying it basically from the inside.
That's true. Yeah.
I think it was, it's hard because I have an Android.
Yeah.
So when I got invited, I was like, dang, how do I even use it? And then
wait, they don't have it for Android?
They don't have it for Android.
It's
iOS only.
Because you have an iPhone.
Sorry,
I don't like the way she said it. She's like, because you have an iPhone.
I'm sorry. I also.
Oh my god.
I'm just stuck in that world,
It's
the ecosystem I've bought in.
The ecosystem.
No, like there's just an iPad, like an old iPad I had at home, and I just so happened. Oh,
that's
thank
good.
God.
That's good.
And it's like,
I like that. I like that.
It's weird too because those rooms are limited to like 5K or something, so you can't have more than like 5K.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah. So Elon Musk was like talking on there and only 5K people could like tune in and listen to. Yeah.
Why are they restricted at that point? If it's like,
I don't know.
It's probably a server thing. I think on like more of the operational side, I don't think they could probably support that many. Like, honestly, that many listeners. Because imagine it's like a Zoom room also has a maximum, even if like you can add as many as you think you can.
I feel like that might be the case too for why it's platform specific. But I think the invite only definitely seems like a conscious choice, unless they're only doing that for some beta phase that they're going through now.
They initially said it was for beta testing when they first started it. I think a lot of people have a lot of inmates at this point.
There's another app called Stereo that recently came out, and I just recently downloaded it, and I haven't really like had a chance to go talk on there, but it's a very similar idea. But for them, it's more restricted between two people. So it's like you're just talking, like it's two people talking and everybody else commenting.
How do you guys how do they match people on that?
I think it might be randomized based on like similar like I guess things that you kind of let them know what you want to talk about in the beginning, or like interests that you have. So for example, I follow like different hashtags, like I don't know, like political hashtags or like business hashtags, and then like faith hashtag, right? And so like there's different speakers on those topics, and you can actually like choose to like preset a time. So for example, like what we're doing right now, we can actually do that on Stereo, on like almost like a live like a live stream platform. So that other people can actually make comments if they come. Like,
that's so cool. That's like streaming, but like audio.
Yeah, so you can actually comment on there.
You can comment, but you can comment voice messages. So I actually don't know what it looks like yet. But in my head, I'm thinking, okay, if you can comment voice messages, what are the chances that like whoever is speaking can actually tap on those voice messages, and then everyone in that live stream and hear
Right.
whatever like those people's comments are.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I feel like that's like pretty nice.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, because Mike and I were talking a little bit about how it's like frustrating that Clubhouse doesn't let you comment or anything like that. It's just like you just listen in, and if you have any other opinions, maybe you talk about it in another room.
Yeah. I'm not even trying to talk to Daniel Day Kim. I want to talk to like the other people our age and our
whoever's
level of fame, which is not famous.
I think the interactive part is super important because I think it's all about like feedback, right? And like hearing about what other people have to say and then having a conversation. So it's not just
that seems to be part of Clubhouse's MO though, is that it's more curated in all those ways.
Yeah, and I really like it because I feel like anyone could really build an audience on Clubhouse if you're talking. It's all based on what you say and your thoughts, and it's not really based on like, oh, you look like this or any like external factors. It's just like I'm saying stuff, and if you like what I'm saying, you can follow me. You know what I mean?
So it's very for us because we're so good looking. It's kind of
exactly. I know. Yeah.
But, you got to play wherever the ball's at. You got to play in that court.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah.
Good one. Yeah,
and it's back to the issue about hate crimes, things like that. There's definitely a lot of different, like you said, arguments going on, and one of those arguments was it worth putting up some sort of monetary reward for someone coming forward and saying, oh, I have information on the person who attacked this Asian elderly. Yeah. Did that do anything, or is that just going to get wiped away as soon as the news cycle refreshes and then we're back to square one?
Yeah.
So what's the best use of funds?
Right.
There?
Yeah.
And here's the second thing too, though, like because you think about it, the fact that they even had to put up that like reward, like $25,000, it's almost like do famous people have to continuously do that in order for this to gain any traction, or in order for justice to actually happen? That's the biggest question.
I feel like this is an issue that has like we see it come to light now, just as like Black Lives Matter came to light, but these things have been happening for a while. I think in the beginning of COVID, there was like a spike for sure.
And that was like the start
Canada
of it.
as well, actually. They had a lot of crimes against like either property or like against Asians up in Canada. Like Montreal and in Toronto and in Vancouver and those places.
Canadians aren't that nice, apparently.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. Just as how we have second waves, we have like a resurgence in here for like these violent crimes. And I feel like, I don't know, I just don't understand why, not that I don't understand why that elderly are easy target. Like that's like the answer for why they chose them target. But I think it's just so inhumane. Like these elderly people are so fragile. They're so vulnerable. There's like nothing they can do. And they're not really inciting anything, So it's like they're just picking a fight. Like literally going out there to pick a fight. And I don't really know what that accomplishes except like getting... I don't really know what it accomplishes. I don't understand.
Killing elderly, injuring elderly, like I think like race aside, who goes and pushes elderly people down?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, footage is
outside of race, like it's crazy.
Yeah,
like they're just minding their own business.
Yeah,
like seeing the footage is like so shocking because you see like the elderly person like literally topple like down like straight. There's like no, because she was not expecting it, so there's no.
Can't catch themselves at all. Just straight down.
There's no like.
They're old. There's like 70-something-year-olds.
And it's even hard to use like a self-defense sort of like argument here because they're so old that they can't.
They cannot.
Pick up your cane and beat them up. Like
exactly. Yeah. I mean, even with the what were they doing? Air horns, like mace, like
they're giving out
sprays.
The whistles. I forgot what it's like. It's like a whistle to like announce, oh, someone's attacking me.
And we're also talking about situational awareness here, right? Too. So I mean, that is like good, but I just don't know how far that will go. You know what I mean? Yeah, definitely. It's just especially with the elderly. I don't know.
I mean, I guess the answer is that it's not just the elderly themselves, it's everyone who's around them. The able-bodied people need to be given the tools and given the know-how, given the support from the community.
That's true.
Given the skills and the courage to be able to step up when these things happen. Not that they can see them happen, but if they have, like you said, that awareness or those physical abilities.
To be more perceptive and like try to...
Yeah, it's just so frustrating seeing some of these videos and no one stepping in to help out.
And sometimes it's like that,
I actually want to build off that point. I think I've been thinking that too. Like you see some of the videos in New York City, for example, like the one that happened in Flushing, where Olivia Munn was like really just like kind of retweeting it and made that one more of like a forefront.
Yeah.
And the person recently got, I think, arrested.
Yeah, she knew that person. It was like her friend's mom or
it was her friend's mom, but the craziest thing is like, I was just like, why is no one doing anything? But and then
they're all just standing watching her.
Yeah, some might say like, oh, and it wasn't like a one shove thing. It was literally like the guy took a box and like threw it at the person, then shoved the person again until they fell on the floor. So it's like, then the question, like, I think in my head is like, oh, like, how come nobody did anything? But like I think we have to,
bystander effect.
Yeah, but we also have to like take into consideration too, like specifically like culturally, the thing that's been going on the longest, right? This Asian minority myth. Where it's like, I think it does build and feed into it, but also like this idea is like, keep your head down and just don't mind, like, don't do anything. You know, I wrote a small article. I think it happens, I wrote a small article on like my stance on guns, right? My stance on
you want more of them. You want everyone to be strapped.
Oh yeah. I know, like literally, I had a very kind of like central kind of opinion, and you know, if you guys want to go read it, it's on Medium, but I basically like took a very like central like there needs to be some kind of regulation and like maybe more regulation, but I don't necessarily think getting rid of the Second Amendment will do anything for anyone,
right?
Because people are still gonna find their ways like to guns. Like it's just like speakeasies, you know, back when they had prohibition. But like what I found really, really interesting is my mom actually came up to me and said, you should take that article down. And I think for me that was like, it was just very unexpected. Like I didn't really understand it, and I didn't understand why she would even say that. And I asked her, I was like, oh, like what's your reasoning? I'm just wondering. And she said, oh, I don't want, you know, crazy people to come after you, and I just think it's better if you just don't stay
out of trouble.
Literally stay out of trouble. Like if something's happening, like you go report it to the police, but just like stay out of it. Like don't try to be a hero. And it's like a very interesting perspective sometimes, and you know, I love her, but I think to some degree it's like at some point you do have to make a stand. At some point you do have to make your voice heard.
Right.
Yeah.
And like to that point about model minority myths sort of feeding into it, it's not just on the Asian side. Now that perception affects the people who are robbing and doing things like that. Because sometimes it's not, I want to hurt this person because they're Asian. Sometimes it is, I want to go out and rob someone, and I'm going to take, like Joe said before, the best opportunity to do that. So it's not only someone who's older, it's not only someone who's like alone at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night in the street. It's also, okay, I'll target this Asian community because I feel like when I go and do it to the Asian people, they're not going to call the cops. They're not going to retaliate because they follow that.
More low-key,
It's like it's a spot of shame. So instead of like actually saying or reporting or doing anything, you're just like, I'm just going to brush under the rug. It's not worth it.
And like in those people's defense, it is real violence is something we rarely see nowadays. It's very scary when you see it happen in front of you. I've seen it happen a couple times.
Oh, really?
And it is, nothing related or nothing recent, but over the years, I've seen a couple of fights break out. I broke up fights when I could. I stayed out when I felt I had to. But it's a whole other thing. And even when you see if like a little fire sparks up or something like that, or something starts smoking, you would imagine people go, oh my God, there's a fire. Everyone leave or get the fire extinguisher or whatever. Usually they kind of just sit there and look at it and they're confused for a couple seconds. Like smoke from my phone. That's not supposed to happen. What's going on? And it takes a second to register because they're not used to doing that. So in their defense, they're probably not trained to do that.
Right. You need some time to process. You need some time to process. And like you said, if you're not equipped, it's hard to like react that fast. You know how everyone talks about like, the deer in the headlights, how you should just like move and not just stand there. But I think at that moment, like you're in shock. You have to like really take
it's hard to fight that, to train that.
Right.
And for self-defense, like Darren was saying before, as someone who does a whole lot of self-defense and martial arts and stuff like that, people think, and back to the gun point, they're like, I don't need to do a whole lot of training. I have a gun. That's enough to protect me. And the answer is no, it's not. If you've never used it in a pressure situation, then you don't know how you're going to respond. It's not going to be much use to it.
Do you think that, this might be kind of a stupid question, but do you think it's kind of become like a bad thing that we've become so comfortable? Because I mean, obviously like 1,000 years ago, I mean, humans used to have to like fight off things like left and right, you know, and we're
this wolf and
exactly. So we have that like instinct, right? And then obviously over time it just happens less and less, so we just become more accustomed to like comfortable living, and no one's gonna come attack me, right? But that's a bad mindset, right? You know, to have, you should still be on alert. So I mean,
I can imagine being on
high alert every moment.
I feel like being on high alert is so stressful because I feel like they took turns. People would like take turns sleeping and take turns watching. So
I mean, I think the real problem is, but I think it's a Mike Tyson quote, right? Everyone's so used to saying things on social media and then not getting punched in the face for it. It's not that we should be more paranoid, it's that we need to realize that we're desensitized to it.
Right.
And you see all these clips of people going up talking mad shit to other people, and then they get thrown on the concrete and they get really, really hurt. And you don't realize because you see, you know, fighters on TV or you watch pro wrestling or whatever, people get slammed down all the time.
Yeah,
and
I
get
was
right back
like,
up. In real life, you get slammed on concrete, that could be it. And if you're slamming someone on concrete, that could be it for you too. You might go to jail forever. That could be it for you. So people really have to realize there's levels to these things, and those levels, that ceiling is way lower than you think.
Yeah,
for sure.
I actually might agree a little bit with Mike because I think if anything, we're consuming at least like consuming more and more like kind of quote unquote violence or violent media. Like I mean, I think with movie magic and all that stuff, like right gore.
So we become desensitized a little bit.
It's just like, you know, like previously in the news they've reported people who like playing real life GTA. And then like they arrest them. They arrest them. No, but seriously, like I think this is one like small examples. Like they arrest them, and then like, what were you thinking? Oh, like I was playing real life GTA. Is their answer? And it's like, you know, for us, it's like, what the heck are you thinking, right? But I think for them, it's like in their head, right? You just like you said, it just doesn't seem as real of a problem, as scary as a situation until like the moment you get slammed on that concrete.
Not to say that it makes you do those things, but it definitely makes that sense of caution
a little bit less. It dulls it.
Exactly.
I think it's all.
Yeah, sorry. I was gonna say, like, on the topic of like desensitization, do you think that it is a good thing or a bad thing that we're showing these clips so readily of Asians just getting knocked down and just these brutal graphic images?
I think it's necessary.
Would people get desensitized to that, you know, sort of?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I feel like it needs to be shown though. Like regardless if we desensitized or not, I think it's still so shocking. And like people need to see this because I feel like a lot of times, like when George Floyd came to light, it's because we had footage of that. Like sometimes it could just be one man's word against another man or like woman, right? But then now it's like we have literal video footage. Like you can't say that didn't happen because it happened. So I feel like that is so important, and that's what's so great at the same time about like our current like age, that we have all this media at hand that allows us to capture these things, and that we can use that to bring a lot of things to light. And I feel like that's also why I think film is so powerful for us, because we see it not just as a medium to like create, but also as a way to like send messages, you know, as a way to like express and find a way to bring awareness to things.
I don't think
change does happen because people see those things happening.
Like no one
go ahead.
And no one talks about it. Like you said, it's like hard. I feel like as a woman, like in New York City, I would get scared sometimes at night just because it's like I know the stories. I've heard the stories and recollections of things happening. And I feel like because I know I'm more cautious, you know? But I feel like because these Asian elderly people don't have those voices telling them these stories, they can't even try to be more cautious, like you said. They can't anticipate, that this XYZ person is going to come after me tonight and like push me down. Like, that doesn't even cross their minds because these stories have never been shared before. And I think that is a huge flaw of our culture, that like we don't share the embarrassing sides, that we don't share the times when we fall, times that like just doesn't work out. And that's not just for like violence, it's for like a lot of things, you know, like success. I feel like parents always like compare you to people, but then they don't tell you about when this person didn't do this thing well. They always tell you like, this XYZ
like
person,
the top percent
exactly.
of things
they compare you to like the top percentage of
Instagram.
people. And I feel like that's exactly what media is doing to you. It's not just showing you like the graphic and like disgusting like violent side, but also like they paint this perfect life for you that they're like, these other people are living this life, and like, you should kind of want that too. And I feel like the media is like almost manipulating us.
I feel like I don't know. I'm always a little skeptical when I have that thought, because I do agree, and we should have celebrities and leaders themselves go out and saying I am not perfect in this and that. But you know, when it comes to like social media and people are like, people never post about their low points. Why don't they do that? Why do they only post a highlight? I'm like, why would I share with you a vulnerable moment if I have no idea who the hell you are? So to a certain extent, I'm like, it is the viewer's responsibility to have that logic. It's different when we're being indoctrinated into it, and it's constant, and it's young minds who are being molded, and it's parents who don't understand this because they didn't grow up with it. So you're right, there's responsibility and change that has to be had there, because there is a negative effect going on, but there's also some semblance of personal responsibility, I feel like.
I want to say it was honestly
it's a mix.
Like based on your question, you know, going back to the root of it, even I think it's a blessing and a curse. Going to the root of it, and this will kind of build into Mike, what you and Jojo were talking about. But I think it's a blessing and a curse that we do have like access to this type of media so accessibly, and it's so easily posted all over social media. Like, you know, horrible things being live streamed on Facebook just because people wanted to, because they had access to it, right? And I actually think like it's a blessing in a sense where it's like now you can bring to light a lot of things where previously those things aren't recorded, but I think it's a curse because of the same exact thing. It's a double-edged sword. It's like it's a good thing that there's more exposure and there's more awareness, which will breed into like hopefully like a better perspective for the future and a more holistic in a world kind of view. But I think it's a curse because what you end up seeing, right, is this these things get misconstrued, or these things like feed into people's minds where they're moldable, or it feeds into like kind of like your own biases, and then if you're not kind of going out of your way to like fix the biases, but like to kind of like play devil's advocate with yourself, then you're gonna end up like I think feeding into more and more where it becomes a parasitic issue. Like I think like media in and of itself becomes like a parasitic thing. And so like for kids, for example, they're not gonna know. Let me play devil's advocate with myself. Let me like, you know, go against what I think to just see what it looks like. They don't have that capacity, I think, like, because again, their minds are developing. And so that's where we see like media becoming more and more moldable and more kind of like, in a sense, infringing upon their thought patterns, infringing upon like the way that they think and the way that the new generation thinks, versus like for, I think, adults even, at times that could be true too, where it's like they're like, oh, I like my biases. I like sitting in people who agree with me specifically. You know, I think even like, where we see this type of like raw media though, like flipping back to how it's a good thing, it's like it's good because you can actually now form your own opinions. However, we have to also keep in mind things can be edited, things can be manipulated, clips can be shortened, lengthened, or clipped down to show a certain thing. One cut out kind of like frame. In the massive, like whatever that media is.
You might lose the context.
Exactly.
Exactly. People say all the time, like, oh, it's science, you know, numbers don't lie. Actually, I'm going to go out on a limb and say numbers lie all the time. Is it crazy to think that a politician will skew statistics?
Absolutely.
If it's not a crazy thought, then yes, numbers can lie. And it is, you know, if there's any debate in the scientific community at all, that means numbers don't tell an objective truth 100%. There's interpretation that has to be had.
It's around the ballpark.
Exactly, But I will say in terms of like violent media and real media, when it's an actual video of someone getting hurt or something like that, I think that's different because if the camera keeps rolling, you can see those repercussions in a way that you haven't before. Because we've seen people get punched all the time on screen. We haven't seen them get punched once, see actual blood, and then not get up. Or you see them try to get up and they're obviously a different person who lost motor functions, things like that. It is a different thing. And now we have, to your point before about, sure, the elderly can't defend themselves, but then, you know, can we ask bystanders to always do things 100% of the time? It's actually not a realistic ask to make of them. But now we have on the West Coast, at least, people organizing saying, okay, neighborhood watch because of this rise in elderly attacks. We're also approaching 30 minutes here.
Okay.
So I think we should
take a quick
switch
break.
out the camera.
We'll see you guys in literally a second for you. Okay, anyways.
We're back.
I was actually wondering, when we took that little brief intermission.
Our economic recession.
Recession.
No. Honestly, it's coming soon. But
okay, great. Good to know. The rest of this podcast is going to be Jojo telling us the doom about our economy.
Well, this is the news right here. So.
No, because the
10-10 wins.
Yeah.
Oh, is that copyrighted? Oh shoot! No.
Wait! Don't do it. No.
Don't do it. No. But Mike, I was actually wondering. You know, I think you're adopted, and the rest of your family's Italian. So do you have like a different perspective that you feel like you bring to the table, or like where's your mindset where has your mindset been with all of this? Because I think you obviously grew up with like this like knowledge, like, hey, I look different than the rest of my family, to be honest. Like where does that kind of put you with this current situation?
I mean, for this particular issue, I think the biggest thing is that it shows me a little bit where the line of culture stops and where just independent choice sort of begins. Because everyone's saying, you know, oh, it's the Asian culture, it's the Asian people to a certain extent, or the community. That's not what I grew up in. I did not see that community until I got into college. So to a certain extent, that I can confidently say, no, this is not because of the community, or this is because of the community, because I was not raised in that. But other than that, I think, usually being adopted is almost like being biracial. I hear a lot of mixed race people saying a lot of similar things that I feel in terms of, we don't have a mother language. We're coming from two different cultures, or, I didn't grow up with all of these Asian things that all the Asian people are talking about. Some of the people say weird stuff like, oh, it's so Asian to keep balloons after birthday parties. Like, what are you talking? Do you talk to non-Asian people? That's just a human being thing. Everyone keeps balloons.
Yeah, literally.
What are you talking about? Like, I let my umbrellas dry. Whoa, everyone lets their anyway.
Do you guys have shoes off in your house?
I always do. Yeah, my family does, but we're not like super neurotic about it. I know a lot of the Asian community is pretty adamant about that.
Honestly not. I think my dad walks through the house sometimes when he leaves his keys in the and like, dang it, and just walks with his shoes on.
He has a second pair of shoes that he puts on his hands so he can carve it through the house.
No, he has a shoe bag.
Wait, what do people do if they don't take off their shoes in the front?
They wear it in the house.
They wear it in the house. They wear it up to their bed, and then they lay in their bed.
All the way up to their bed?
No, I feel like they wear it to the room maybe, and then
I went to our friend Cameron's house once, and then I think like that was my one of the first instances. Not the first. It was like one of the instances where it's like I got really shook just because like I don't know, immensely he had a carpet, and I was like, but why would you stand on a carpet with shoes? And it just like I couldn't wrap my head around it. But
it's a lot of vacuuming, man.
Yeah. So then I'm like stepping on this carpet like very like tenderly. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm walking on lava. It's very weird. Yeah.
I can't understand because after like you go in the snow, you reach like go hiking.
Yeah.
Isn't all that like debris?
The New York City streets with the gum.
Oh my god, with the mice and everything.
And then like people like peeing on the streets. Or whatever, like the sewage and everything. And
just walking into your house like that.
Yeah. With all the sewage.
Oh my gosh, I thought of it.
Yeah, so anyway, I always wear my shoes in the house.
Yeah.
No, not really. I do always take them off. But living with on being adopted, living with my housemates this year at college, they're all Asian. They're all Chinese, I believe. It's interesting for me to go through college and interact with all these Asian people and really immerse myself in that community and learn some of the things that I was never able to learn. So for me, learning chopsticks, how to use them properly, such a small thing, but that was very important to me. Learning how to eat soup dumplings, because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if there's like a whole rigmarole to how to do it, but being taught all those things is definitely a process.
So wrong.
Yeah, I mean chopstick skills are probably worse than yours.
And I eat them one of two ways. The one way is like if I'm with like certain relatives, I'll use the quote unquote right way. The way I was.
What's the right way?
Hong Kong.
Yeah, what's
like
the
so?
Way?
Apparently, you're supposed to like make a small hole like chocolate juice.
That's
and then like you put it in the sauce and you eat it, right? What I used to do since childhood, and I'll still do with my family. We should. I would literally like rip it open with my chopsticks and the little spoon, pour the soup into the little spoon, and I'll eat the skin first, and then I'll eat the meat, and then I'll drink the soup. Don't ask.
Oh, you eat the meat separate too?
Yeah,
That's so weird.
People were probably cringing, but I had a friend once who deconstructed his sandwiches before he ate them.
Actually, I've done that. I've done that a couple times.
So chop up. You know how when road ice cream or something, they would like do like chop.
Yeah.
They had that for a sandwich.
Have you ever had chopped cheese?
Oh my god.
No, I haven't had chopped
Why do you construct a sandwich if you just
take it apart again?
You need chopped cheese, guys. You need to try chopped cheese. If you guys never had chopped cheese, you guys miss it.
One pet peeve of mine, when people go to Chipotle and they say, oh, I want to get a tortilla on the side. They're like, oh, but you get more food that way.
I'm a tortilla on the side kind of guy.
I'm tortilla on the side kind of guy.
I'm like, you could have a burrito. Why wouldn't you want a burrito?
I think the reason
it's you can hold it with one hand.
Yeah, I think
because you get like a whole bunch of like stuff in it. Like you can just keep making them again and again.
It's so fun.
You're not gonna make them like the pros do though.
For me, what I read they're so.
I feel like we don't care about presentation then.
No, for me,
I just want to eat it. Yeah.
For me, the reason why is because I want I want best of both worlds. I want to be able to eat like a small wrapped burrito and maybe like change it up, make a little taco instead, and then change it up and just eat it from the bowl. So I don't need like the little tortillas.
There's a whole night one there. There's a whole evening.
Yeah, literally.
Just doing your Chipotle
3 types of meals.
Oh my gosh,
4 hours later.
3-course meal with the dessert on the side, which would be the
babe, look what I'm doing this time. I made a little person out of the tortilla.
Cut a little heart for Valentine's Day.
Good food talk.
Yeah. What? Shoot. Oh yeah, the chopsticks thing. I wanted to respond to that too. I didn't learn how to use chopsticks until sophomore year of college.
Wow.
Blocking the camera.
Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah, no, because I used to.
I saw you eating with chopsticks.
Yeah, I would
Incorrectly.
No, but incorrectly.
He taped them to his
Very, very
fingers
right.
just to.
So according to my dad.
I couldn't tell.
According to my dad, I mean, look, if you can pick something up, then whatever. Like it works, right?
That's true. That's true.
But like according to my dad, the way I used to use my chopsticks was like my grandpa, but I've never met my grandpa before. So like for him to say that, I was like, okay, I guess it's okay. And then, but it was fine. I could pick things up. And then I remember it was the same relatives from Hong Kong. I felt super judged, and I was like, they were like, "Oh, you can't use your chopsticks," and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" And then
They always make you feel bad about shit.
Yeah, that was
dude.
freshman year, winter break, and then from that point on, I started slowly learning how to use chopsticks. Sophomore year, I can confidently say I learned how to use them properly. My parents were like so shook. They're like, "What happened to you?"
Yeah, my sister used to do the what was it? Like you put the finger in the middle to kind of propel it like a lever, like you
yeah.
like
I think I know what you're
leverage.
talking about.
Yeah. And I know they also like rubber band it too, and they do that as well. Yeah.
That's fun.
Put a
cool.
finger in your chopsticks.
Apparently, I don't use it correctly, but people were just like, "Yeah, it's
Darren's
whatever."
like, it works.
Yeah,
I
it just
don't think I
works.
use
Yeah.
it correctly.
Stabs everything with the
Two
chopsticks.
chopsticks.
When you have a
together.
spot, you go
One in
boom.
each hand. Yeah.
There's this one clip of this guy that's using a chopstick, but he has like a fork underneath it, and it's like nobody's gonna know.
Oh my
How are
gosh.
they gonna know?
Yeah.
You know, I
They're
actually
gonna
use a
know.
spoon for my Chipotle bowl, so.
Yeah, there's this Fruity Pop an Instagram video. She's a girl who does like Asian stuff on Instagram.
Oh, they know you.
Where she has Karen Fruity Poppin', where she has two chopsticks, but then she puts a little like spoon tip on the two ends of the chopstick.
Yeah.
So she has chopstick spoons.
I
Best
see.
thing ever. It was very funny. But
Damn, can you do the utensil like grab like the two spoons?
Oh, I can.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
dim sum grab, the two
Yeah,
spoons,
yeah.
and then like let's say you have like a huge dish of like noodles or something.
Yeah.
You just take the two spoons or like spoon.
And then
oh,
there you
like,
go
like
in.
French style.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
My
I
dad
learned,
told me to do that.
I learned it. From my dad as well.
Mhm.
Actually,
I wish I
my
knew
dad
how to
and
do
my mom
that.
forgot.
It's
Yeah. No, so what you do is with one of the spoons, like you kind of like maneuver your finger like
Yeah,
this,
your
so
pinky,
you're
your ring,
clipping it in,
and your
nice.
middle
and the other
finger.
one is just these two fingers. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
like,
your thumb and forefinger.
yeah. So then it's just
I
like
see.
it's like literally
Okay.
like a massive.
I'm
I
gonna
guess,
go
like a
practice.
utensil chopstick.
That's cool. And you said that's a French thing?
I think it's French,
It's a French
style.
thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
Something like that. Or that's what he knows
I
it
mean,
as.
dim sum is
No.
technically like Western influenced. Like the whole,
Oh,
the whole
okay.
idea of it. It's tea time essentially, but just like
Interesting.
Asian-fied, I guess.
Asian-fied.
Asian-fied.
Asian lo-fi.
I mean, think about like dan tot, egg tarts.
Mm.
Dan tot, like that was like essentially based off like the Portuguese, kind of version.
Oh,
I think.
yeah.
I see.
Filipino culture
I hope I'm
too
not
is
wrong,
like
but yeah.
it's such a mishmash, the Philippines, of all these other like colonizer people's cultures influencing what they do. Spanish and Americans
Yeah,
and just everyone
yeah.
over
had
there.
the best desserts.
But honestly, though,
Yeah.
when you have a
Badass
mishmash of
national anthem,
cultures,
too.
the fusion that comes out of that, like the food fusion.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty good.
So
Yeah,
So good.
Yeah.
Like Hawaiian food. Oh, that's where poke bowls come from. It's a mash of food, or like a fusion like cuisines.
Oh, really?
On the topic of mixing cultures, but bringing it back to our like, main topic.
Oh yeah, so we went on a
think-
food tangent.
No, but I think that's awesome because I love food, so
Yeah.
great tangent. But bringing it back to like mixing cultures, I know there's a lot of people of different races actually supporting the Asian American community now,
Uh-huh.
and like that's been super awesome as well because I think a lot of minorities definitely have to like group together so that we have a stronger voice. Because if it's just like Asians rallying for Asians, that only takes it within that bubble. But
Mhm.
having other people, for example, I remember in the Clubhouse talk, someone was saying that like, oh, they invited this comedian to come speak because every single time he's always been there for them, always speaking out for the Asian American community because he really believes in that. And he believes that we have to come together because
Mm-hmm.
if not, then these stories not being shared and it's just not as strong of a message for everything else. So I feel like that's
Right.
really important and like
Mhm.
being open to these different cultures. I think just being willing to take these different perspectives and being willing to talk about your stories with them as well and using them as a resource and having them help spread that message. I think it's like so essential to like helping us all grow and just
Mm-hmm.
break out of this like the comfort zone that we all have because I feel like it's easy to be in our own bubble. And you guys have all said it already. It's in different ways of consuming the same media, but like when you have different perspectives, being challenged is a great thing because that's how you I feel like learn the most.
Yeah.
So I think having these other communities happen is also super, super awesome.
Yeah, I actually want to add on to that. There's something I've been thinking recently because the other perspective in the Asian American community, especially the I guess the older generation, barring the elderly, obviously. But like let's say it's like our parents' generation, so like millennial, past millennial. What you see a lot with that kind of age group is they'll just scapegoat other minority groups. And it's like very, very interesting, to be honest, because one thing I hear all the time from like certain Asian like Americans, like adults, like it's just like, oh, like, you know, the African American community should just like man up and like start doing their own thing, and then like, you know, based on their perspective, they think they have merit in saying that. But I think like what's really interesting to note is like we all can't, and it's not just a one person problem. It's a we all can't like categorize everyone into one big group. It's not like because President Obama became president. Yeah, therefore everything has now been solved.
Yeah,
like it's
Jordan
not that
was saying
simple.
with Get Out. Yeah,
and it's not like it just ends there. Like redlining was a historical thing. Government wise, the government has like kind of produced this gap, this inequality, like from the get go. So it's like you can't just dumb it down to being like they didn't try hard enough.
Right.
They didn't put themselves enough. Out enough. They didn't, put their heads down and work hard enough.
Right.
Yeah, I think MLK said something like, you can't say pull yourself up by your bootstraps to someone who doesn't have any boots.
Exactly.
And that's where some of these communities are starting from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it starts with resources, like giving them the right resources. And because I think there's so many things that works against them, like the whole history behind everything else, that you start from an unequal playing ground. And then that really hinders your growth and your progress, because how would you, like I said, there's nothing for you to work with. How would you even have that? Like, you don't have the connections. You don't have the financial backing. People have property that they own from generations back because their grandfathers owned them. But there was grandfather clauses. You literally could not own property for people who were Black in America. And that's so
when they wanted to, they couldn't.
When
they wanted to move
like,
the suburbs
what are you
back,
supposed to do? So it's like, I feel like everything that's been highlighted makes a lot of sense. It's like you need to have some baseline foundation that allows for you to have these resources to do what you do. And I think what you said definitely ties back to like the model minority myth, right? Like how it's harmful in so many ways, right? It's like you think it's a good thing because it paints Asians as the model minority, but it's really not, because one, it's categorizing us as only doing these specific roles of what's, I guess, somewhat successful.
What's
right?
expected,
what's expected, and like lawyer, doctor, like engineer, stuff like that. That I guess Asian parents like to
male model. Maybe that one's just
just like every Asian son.
Exactly. But I think it's bad.
Yeah, like kind of building off of that too. It's this idea of, again, categorizing or even blanketing like certain groups. Like I think it's kind of it's like a defeatist like purpose, and it just like it's a self-defeating thing. And like what's really interesting is like you make the argument like this one person was pushed down by a white person, right? In the Flushing case, that mother was pushed down by a white person, but then like I don't know, in Oakland it's by a Black person, but does that mean like the entirety of the African American community or entirety of like, let's say like the Caucasian community is just automatically now like everyone is like that one person? No, the answer is no. There's racist like
in every single
MOs
race.
like in every single race. Like even Asians, like they're 100% like in Cantonese.
Honestly,
how do you say Black people? How do you say white people? No, like literally the term for in Cantonese for like Westerners or even the term for like Africans, it's like derogatory. Like from the root of it is derogatory. Why? Because they were taken over obviously by the British government or by like the European powers at that point. But it is a derogatory term. So in and of itself, it kind of like produces and it like continues to like feed into this like stereotype. Like these are the white devils, these are the Black devils.
And the truth is that it's not only the like minority cultures themselves that sort of fall into that trap. It's also the status quo community or certain white powers or institutions who are using that to play those groups against each other. And divide and conquer has always been
it's like chess
being pulled right from that playbook. If you're looking at native tribes in Native America for indigenous peoples, or if you look at as recently as as, a huge example is the LA riots. If you're talking about Asian and Black relations there, you have Black people, Black communities there going to riot. And then they, wound up trashing a lot of Koreatown. And one big aspect of that a lot of people don't recognize is that the police who are controlled by, white controlled police aren't protecting Koreatown. They're protecting the wealthier, affluent areas. They're protecting the white areas. And
if you look historically, they were redirected completely.
Exactly,
they weren't even there at all.
100%.
Like they were literally called into a different part of the LA, the greater LA area, and they're like, get stationed here, and they're kind of watching from afar all these flames go up and all this this violence happening, and it's the craziest thing because they could have literally been in the thick of it, but they were stationed elsewhere.
And that's something we have to be wary of, the fact that minority communities can be played against each other like that, or they can just do it themselves at this point because it's so internalized. When we're looking at, if it is a lot of the attacks against or against Asian elderly by Black folks in America, or if you're looking at the reverse, when you're looking at the George Floyd case and you have that Asian face as one of the officers 100% complicit in that death, that was a really hard one to watch because we did watch someone die for 7, 8, 9 minutes at a clip, straight through uncut. So you have to be able to call out the other community in a way that does not mean you're against them, in a way that you're both trying to grow from that and show love by being critical of your own community and of those other communities.
For sure. I actually read this one book. It's actually reversed in the case, because right now we see a lot of media where there is, like, right now for the elderly Asian people, there's a lot of people who are Black who are assaulting them. But this book actually talked about this Korean mom who owned a little shop in her local area, and she actually shot a Black person, and that person died. And then the mom actually never got repercussions for it. And then later on throughout the book, her daughters actually reconnected with the people that was related to the Black person who died. And that was so powerful because one, I think it exposed that Asians are also violent. We're capable of doing this too. I mean, her mom was trying to protect her shop. Not that shooting someone was the right move.
Was this in California? Was this an LA case? Because I know that definitely happened there.
I think it might have been. I can double check for you, but it was based on a real story. And then it was crazy because at the end they had a moment. I'm definitely spoiling the book, by the way, so apologies. But they had a moment where both the daughter of the mom and then some other relative that was related to the Black person, they had a moment of mutual respect because I think the mom died, actually. Her mom died at the end. So then it was super powerful because they both know that they messed up, but it was that moment of solidarity where they connected, that they realized at the end of the day, we're all humans and what we did was wrong. And it doesn't matter if you're Asian or Black or revenge, race aside or revenge aside, just so we really fucked up and we just cannot do that again. We cannot have these tensions. And I remember there's this one scene in the book that you can literally visualize where they were in a crowd of people and people were shouting at the Asian girl because they're oh, your mom's a murderer, stuff like that. And then at the flip side, there's a lot of tension there as well. But then amidst all this craziness, they were just standing and I think they hugged at the end. I think that was just so powerful because it was the stark contrast of things just kind of coming together into a place where it's mutual respect. I feel that was very powerful.
Did they make a film out of that?
I don't know, but they should.
I thought I saw.
I'm not sure. Wait, what's the book called again?
I will get back to you. I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was based on a real story. If you Google it, it's I think her name was Esther. I might be making this up, but
I mean,
let me fact check myself so I'm not telling you guys lies.
Okay.
But we'll pop
this
the book
book exists out there, so if you Google it,
it's a fact.
it might come up.
The contents of it, definitely.
Yeah, it's the contents.
Yeah. No, I wrote my essay on it. Damn, I'm just so bad.
Yeah. There's definitely a history, right? And it is more important than most people realize, I think, to know that history and to know examples of how people have been mistreated, the subtle ways that it is today, as opposed to the larger ways. And it isn't just as simple as, oh, this person said they don't like me because of the way I look. It is more institutional than that, and it is more well thought out, more deeply affecting than that. And you look at cases, names like Grace Lee Boggs come up a lot, or Yuri Kochiyama or Reverend Jesse Jackson come up a lot when you're talking about those Black and Asian relationships in solidarity and activism, things like that. very important to see those inspiring stories as well and see what strategies have come before. Because a lot of people are saying, oh, I'm mad about this, I'm going to go protest. Then I realize protesting is objectively the wrong choice, right? Because of the effects that boycotts have or that protests or big demonstrations have. There's a strategy and a logic behind this. You have to educate yourself before going out there and making the wrong point, articulating something the wrong way.
Yeah. I remember what previously would happen when there was like kind of like this when the BLM movement was at its height recently, right? A lot of like kind of like media that went against it. It was very interesting because I love seeing different perspectives. I think it's really important for me to be informed on both sides to understand how like other people are thinking too. But what I saw, like, I don't want to say conservative media, but at times it was heavily like by conservative media. What I saw a lot was kind of like people saying, "Oh, we're the Asian community does not understand us, like the Black and Latinx communities," and I think like that kind of like mutually exclusive thought is like incorrect in the sense of, like, the type of racism we face is fundamentally different. It's because we're seen as outsiders still. It's the idea, like, we look different. We're treated different because we're foreigners, and that's the type of racism we face. Versus, like, I think for Black Americans, it's like their history being ingrained in slavery and being ingrained in kind of like this United States, like, to be honest, like United States and European kind of like background and influence makes them like completely tied into a different type of racism that they've been facing from the beginning too. And it's a very different type of like beginning facing of like of racism, where it's like for them it's fundamentally different from the racism I think Asian Americans face. However, at the end of the day, we're all facing racism, right?
Right. And that doesn't mean you can't tell me about it, and that doesn't mean I'm not going to stand up for you on whatever your version of hardship is.
Exactly.
And also, I think it's worth mentioning when we're talking about model minority and how Asians face racism, it isn't just the successful groups of Asians who are being affected by it in that, oh, society's trying to put me in a box. It's also people who are dirt poor, who are impoverished, or who are being assaulted in these cases. Other groups of people, the Asian American sort of demographic has the highest income inequality, the biggest income gap, because we just don't acknowledge those narratives that don't fit the model minority.
Exactly. It's interesting proportionally where, like, I think, like, because even when we say Asians, we've categorized more than half the world's population. By just saying
Asian, Pacific Islander, Desi, all these other things.
Like, you've just, like, India, China,
such a huge range.
That's already the biggest, like, countries with the most population. And then on top of that, it's like, then what popular media, like, sometimes likes to do is just like, look at these people, like, they're successful, right? This model minority, like, they're successful, they've got it, they've gotten here, and look, they've tried, and they've gotten here. But then then we forget, proportionally, there might be a lot of rich Asians, but also proportionally, there's a lot of poor Asians. And 100%. Times, like, by numbers, more poor Asians than anybody else in the world.
I have this idea for a hashtag where you go hashtag first world problems, but it's everyone who's impoverished in this first world that we're living in. Where it's like, oh, don't have enough food to feed myself because I have to feed my baby. Hashtag first world problems. I can't post it because I'm not in that situation. But anyone, feel free to start that trend, please.
Actually, I was on the Clubhouse call. Andrew Yang came on. He was saying that New York City is actually one of the most, like, has the highest percentage of Asian people who are poor. It's like I think it's like 24% of poverty, and that's like pretty high.
It's higher than New York's overall poverty.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like, I understand, like, Chinatown, it's hard to thrive there. It's so expensive in New York City, and also there's just so little jobs that's available for immigrants. I think. Especially, I think a lot of Asian Americans are like first generation, second generation, like I don't think there's a lot of people who are like third generation here. And this is YouTuber Jen M. She was saying that her mom actually got assaulted when she was in elementary school, and some persons came into the store and like slashed her mom's face. Wow. And that was crazy because then the scar lasted. And Jen was so sad because she was saying how, as an immigrant parent, you have to take the worst jobs because you don't have the education, you have an accent. There's not a lot of things that's capable for you. And like they give up so much to come to the US and they have to take these work in the most unsafe neighborhoods because rent's cheaper there. They have to take these jobs that are more dangerous because who else is going to hire them? And then that puts them in so much danger. And at the same time, they face this violence and they can't do anything about it. And they don't speak up about it. Like when Jen went home. Her mom just had like a towel on her face, and then she asked her dad like, "Oh, like what's going on with mom?" And mom's like, "Oh, nothing much has happened." And then like later on, then she reveals that like, "Oh yeah, like some guy slashed me in the face today." And I feel like that's so crazy.
She didn't like report it or anything. Like,
I don't know all the details.
How did they? Right?
Yeah.
They're immigrants. They just
immigrants is a
States.
whole other
like,
thing.
How do you know?
Yeah.
And like that's
What
the
to
thing
do
with the
in that
elderly
situation.
Asian people. It's like they have to pass out pamphlets that have Chinese on them because it's like they don't know how to do it. They don't know what reporting even looks like in the United States.
That's another huge thing is a lot of these efforts who are looking for Asian communities or immigrant communities especially, they're like, we got to print it in English, we got to print it in Thai, we got to print it in Chinese, all these different dialects because not everyone speaks those languages.
Right.
And another thing, G. Yamazawa is this Japanese American. He's a rapper. He's also a spoken poet. I feel like spoken word poetry is like the white person version of rap sometimes, but I don't know the history, so I won't speak on that.
Yeah.
His father was an immigrant, first generation, and you hear a lot of times people go, "Oh, why don't they speak English if they're in America? It's not my problem. They should, learn the language."
Yeah.
And like I get that point of view, but then G. Yamazama comes up with his line where he's basically saying, "My dad didn't speak really good English. He didn't learn it because that's not what would have fed his family. He had to go out and work, and he didn't have the time to do that when he could have been out having to hustle and having to make that money." And again, just being an immigrant, I heard I met John C. Yang, who's the president of the Asian American, I think, Advancing Justice Center or something like that in DC. He had a very similar story about his parents because they owned a shop and someone came and robbed the place and beat him up or something like that. And his dad's like, "No, we can't report it because, we're immigrants and that's not what's going to be paid attention to." You have Hong Lee's story that just happened in California that we heard about through Clubhouse, where, someone was berating her, racial slurs, disgusting stuff, calls the cops. She's like, "I have it on video. The man gave his name, address, and social security number on video as he did this. There's witnesses everywhere." And the cop's like, "Yeah, it happens all the time though. So like, we're not really going to do anything." And she had to make the video go viral. She had to become an activist through this experience to get that attention for these kinds of cases.
That is so messed up. Like when something like that happens to you already, like having the courage, first of all, is insane already. Because then you have to like face the fear and like live through it again, and then also publicize. So now it's like every single person knows about your most like vulnerable state.
Not everyone's willing to do that.
And then when you tell people, they don't freaking
listen at all.
They don't listen. Sometimes they don't believe you, and then sometimes they think that like it's not a big deal.
They just don't take it seriously.
Like, I don't know if it's like the whole desensitization thing you're talking about, but like I think when we see things on media, we only see it through two of our senses, like sight and audio, right? But we're missing all the other three senses that we have to like go through. So it's like, what is wrong? And I feel like that's, I don't know.
We are approaching an hour, so I feel like we should just maybe name some takeaways that we have from the conversation.
Yes. Oh, we were so motivated, passionate
about it.
We're getting in. I think one thing is to put in the effort to get into more spaces where you can hear more people's points of view, be willing to hear them out, because when you're in a situation where someone's really articulating an opposing viewpoint and then you weren't prepared for that, now you're in trouble. So you have to listen out to other people. You have to show that solidarity for other communities here, not just Asian voices, but Black voices or vice versa, or talking about the Latinx community, whatever it is. I think that's a big one. I would love it if more people knew self-defense and martial arts and stuff like that, but that's just me.
I think ask questions. I think asking questions is always a great way to like learn more, and never be afraid to like not know something, because that's how you learn. If you always know, you can't always know.
Knowing that history, learning that history is huge.
All right.
I think we're going to close it out with our little word game here.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we'll go this way.
Okay.
We
are
the
I can remember.
It's amazing. Amazing.
Set
of
crew
men.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Amateur Mastermind Productions, podcast called Amateur Hour. Tune back in every other Tuesday. We'll be posting another podcast episode, and then also don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, tune in to our Spotify or even our YouTube, wherever you are on these platforms, and check out our other podcast episodes as well on both platforms. And we'll be posting all over our social media, so don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, all the works. All right, I'll talk to you guys later.